The secret journal that revealed the killer's confession. The house at Cedar Lake. If you think truth sleeps forever, think again. Hit subscribe before we open the pages of the most chilling journal ever found. Rain hammered the roof of the cabin as deputies marked the perimeter with yellow tape. Cedar Lake was usually postcard perfect, a stretch of still water surrounded by pine and silence, but that night it was chaos. A body had been pulled from the shallow end, half covered in reeds. The name was Evelyn Drake, a 34-year-old crime novelist who had disappeared 6 days ago after telling friends she'd found the story of her career. Detective Marcus Reed stood ankle-deep in mud, staring at the cabin 50 yards away. The windows were blacked out, but the faint smell of gasoline lingered. Something about the scene didn't fit, the way her car was parked neatly, the front door left open, the faint flicker of a candle still burning inside. Evelyn's phone was gone. Her laptop. "Sir," a deputy called out, lifting a soaked notebook from the porch. The pages were warped and half-burned, but still legible. Scrawled in dark ink across the cover were 3 words. The Journal Project. Reed took it in his gloved hands. It wasn't Evelyn's handwriting. The loops were narrow, controlled, almost surgical. Inside the cabin, the crime scene was eerie in its orderliness. 1 cup of coffee sat half-drunk beside her typewriter. Papers were stacked, not scattered. Her chair was pulled out neatly. And yet, a faint shoe print, not hers, trailed across the wooden floor. As forensic techs snapped photos, Reed flipped open the recovered journal. The first line froze him. "If you're reading this, you found what I couldn't burn. My story isn't fiction anymore." The journal detailed an investigation, Evelyn's own, into a string of disappearances around Cedar Lake from the past 5 years. Local hikers, tourists, and 1 retired park ranger had vanished without trace. Evelyn believed they were connected. But the deeper she went, the stranger her entries became. She wrote about a man named Oliver Hale, a reclusive art teacher who lived on the northern ridge, charming, brilliant, and eerily familiar with police procedure. Evelyn had met him 3 months before her death while researching her next book. Her last entry read, "He asked me if truth scares me. I laughed. Now I'm not sure it was a joke." Detective Reed shut the book. "Get me everything on Oliver Hale," he ordered. By morning, they had their man. Hale, 42, taught at a community college 2 towns over. Divorced. No criminal record. He'd also been one of the last people to see Evelyn alive, confirmed by security footage showing them at a diner just 3 days before she vanished. When police arrived at his home, Hale greeted them calmly, almost expectantly. "I heard about Evelyn," he said, voice low. "Tragic. She was brilliant." His home was spotless. Too spotless. No fingerprints, no clutter, no emotion. But something caught Reed's eye, a shelf lined with identical leather journals, each numbered. Hale smiled when he noticed the detective looking. "Gifts for my students," he explained. "I teach creative writing." The journals were empty. Every one of them. The interrogation was methodical. Hale never lost composure, even when shown Evelyn's notebook. "I don't write like that," he said. And she was obsessed with her stories. Maybe she got lost in one. With no physical evidence tying him to the scene, Reed had no choice but to release him. Still, something about the man lingered. The way he watched people, how he paused before answering, as if testing every word for weight. 2 nights later, Reed sat alone in his office, the rain tapping against the blinds. He opened Evelyn's journal again, flipping to the last page. There was something faint written at the very bottom, in handwriting smaller than the rest, almost hidden in the smudges of ink. "He made me write the ending before he finished it." Reed frowned. The ink pattern was uneven, as if written by someone's shaking hand. He held the page under light. Then he saw it, indented words bleeding through the paper from a previous page that had been torn out. He ran a graphite pencil across the sheet, revealing faint outlines of one final sentence Evelyn had written, a confession not hers, but his. "I never killed for pleasure. Only for the story." Reed's heart sank. The sentence matched the phrasing of a quote he'd heard earlier that week, something Hale had said during interrogation. word for word. He dropped the journal. "Oh my God," he whispered. The next morning, when officers returned to Hale's home with a warrant, the journals were gone. Every single one. The house stood empty, echoing, and cold. But on the kitchen table lay a new leather notebook. Its cover read, "For Detective Reed. Margins and redactions." The notebook on Marcus Reed's kitchen table was the same leather as the others, but heavier, as if it had swallowed something it couldn't digest. On the first page, in that clipped, surgical handwriting, a dedication. "For Detective Reed, because you read between the lines." The next pages were blank. He tilted the paper toward the lamp. A faint sheen rippled across the fibers. "UV," he muttered. At the lab, under blacklight, the emptiness bloomed with hidden ink. A grid of dates, initials, and small map fragments ringed around Cedar Lake. Some boxes were stamped with a single word, draft. Others were marked published. To the right, a numbered list. Premise. Character. Setting. Consequence. Confession. Reed's finger stopped on number 6. Beneath it, an address glowed on the page, Old Mill Road, Bindery 12, and a time, 8 p.m. "Why a bindery?" asked Detective Lena Alvarez, sliding in beside him, ponytail damp from the rain. "He binds his journals," Reed said. "And maybe his stories." They split teams. Patrol units canvassed Oliver Hale's campus. Alvarez and 2 uniforms hit his rental. Reed took a detour to the person who knew Evelyn Drake better than anyone, Mira Collins, her editor. Myra's apartment felt like a paused life. Manuscripts stacked on the counter. A red scarf over a chair. She'd left 3 messages for Reed over the past week, each more urgent than the last. He pressed the intercom. No answer. In the lobby mailbox, an envelope waited with his name in block letters. Inside, a photograph of Mira and Evelyn at a signing, smiling, their faces washed with bookstore light. On the back, a note in that same narrow hand, "Editors fix endings." 8 p.m. Reed's phone buzzed. "Alvarez." "His rental is scrubbed," she said. "Hard drives wiped. He left prints nowhere. But he did leave us a calendar. Tonight's date highlighted with one word, turn." Reed glanced at his dash clock. 7:28 p.m. "Meet me at Old Mill," he said. No sirens. No lights. The old bindery crouched beside the river like something the water had rejected. Its windows were dark, its sign half swallowed by ivy, row press and bindery. The rain had slowed to a steady whisper. Reed slipped through a side door that gave at the touch, Alvarez flanking him with a flashlight low. Inside, dust hung in the air like smoke that had decided to stay. The rooms were a maze of presses and cutters, their metal mouths frozen open. In the central hall, a single lamp burned over a long table. On it, 3 objects, a metronome ticking lazily, a small silver key on a card that read character, and a thick journal stamped Chapter 2. Reed flipped the journal open. The paper was creamy, excellent stock. The first line made the metronome seem louder. A detective is only interesting when he has something to lose. Alvarez scanned the shadows. He's watching. Reed traced the paragraph. The next lines were more pointed, precise. You will arrive before 8, because you're decent. You will bring a partner, because you're not stupid. You will check your phone again and again, because you're afraid of missing the text that says someone you care about has vanished. He looked at Alvarez. She grimaced. He wants us rattled. The far wall was lined with old wooden cabinets labeled with faded ink, ribbons, thread. One cabinet was newer, a black steel locker with a single horizontal slot and the word consequence stenciled on the front. The silver key on the table was cut to fit a small lock like that. Wait, Alvarez said, hand on his arm. This smells like a trap. Everything he does smells like a trap. Reed moved the key in the lock but didn't turn it yet. He scanned the ceiling, the corners, the lamp base. Nothing obvious. He took a breath and twisted. The lock clicked. Inside, there was no glitter of a weapon or the foreboding rectangle of a bomb. Just a phone, a small digital recorder, and a folded piece of paper, all arranged with the care of a museum exhibit. Reed unfolded the paper. You kept asking what I did with endings. Here's one for you to fix. The phone vibrated in his palm. A video opened by itself. Mira Collins stared out from a chair in a dim room, alive, breathing, eyes wide, a strip of light across her face from a window blind. A clock on the wall behind her read 7:58 p.m. She said nothing. Her lips trembled once. The feed cut to black and replaced itself with a countdown, 00:12, 00:11, 00:10. Trace it, Alvarez said, already dialing tech. The recorder's tiny screen glowed with a single file, Evelyn_6. Reed hit play. Evelyn's voice, thin, thready, unfurled into the room. He made me write the confession, she whispered. He said the truth needs structure. He said the last page only matters if you believe every page before it. The metronome ticked. The countdown slid to 0:06. Location. Alvarez snapped into the phone. We need the location now. A click echoed from somewhere above them, metal sliding against metal. Reed looked up. A small camera lens winked red in the rafters, then died. Across the hall, a door he hadn't noticed before, a narrow one flush with the wall, marked archives, shuttered and unlocked itself with a mechanical sigh. Reed and Alvarez ran. The door opened into a stairwell that plunged into dark. The air grew colder, older. At the bottom, another door waited with a brass plate, type room. The silver key wouldn't fit. Next to the knob, a keypad blinked, 4 spaces. What's his word? Alvarez asked. Reed's gaze dropped to the journal's list. Premise, character, setting, turn, consequence, confession. 6 letters. He typed the one that mattered most to Hale. Turin. The lock clicked. They pushed in. Rows of type drawers stretched into the dark like low mausoleums. In the center, under a hanging lamp, sat a trunk, its leather straps buckled tight. On the lid, another note in the same controlled hand. Every story ends with a reveal. Please keep your voice down. Reed eased the buckles, lifted the lid. Not bones. Not blood. A laptop. Its screen came alive, no touch needed. The same room as the video. Same strip of blind light, same clock. Now reading 8 p.m. The camera pulled back on its own, revealing a second chair beside Myra's. Empty, but not for long. In the laptop speakers, a chair scraped. A familiar voice entered the frame, calm as a line on a page. Good evening, Detective, Oliver Hale said, taking the empty seat. Chapter 3 begins when you decide how this one ends. The screen blinked to a live feed prompt. Join call? The last page. The air in the bindery basement felt like it had stopped moving. The laptop screen flickered, the small white box pulsing. Join call? Detective Marcus Reed stared at it, his pulse syncing with the cursor's blink. Alvarez's voice was steady behind him, though her hand trembled around her flashlight. If we join, he's watching us. If we don't, he kills her. Reed hit enter. The feed stabilized. Oliver Hale's face appeared, calm, illuminated by the same thin band of light cutting through the blinds. Behind him, Mira Collins sat bound to the chair, eyes wild but alive. Detective Reed, Hale said smoothly. Always punctual. That's your best quality. Reed's jaw locked. Where is she? Hale chuckled softly. In her own chapter. A beautiful editor deserves an edit, don't you think? Alvarez moved behind the desk, tracing wires leading into the laptop's port. Signals routing through a relay server, she muttered. Can't trace it live. Reed stepped closer to the camera. You think this is a game? Oh, it's always been a game, Hale said, leaning forward. His eyes were clear, cold, but almost excited. You read my journal, didn't you? Every story needs tension, conflict, closure. And you, Marcus, are the closure. The camera panned slowly, showing a wall behind Hale, lined with books and photographs. Reed froze when he saw one, Evelyn Drake, smiling in an older picture. Next to it, another photo, Reed himself, taken from across the street outside his precinct. Alvarez's eyes widened. He's been watching you. Hale tilted his head. I had to make sure the right reader was paying attention. The sound of rain returned, Faint but growing heavier, a backdrop to the rhythmic tick of the wall clock behind Hale. It was the same sound from Evelyn's last recording. The same tempo. The same metronome. Reed gritted his teeth. You killed Evelyn. You killed those hikers. You turned them into your stories, Hale interrupted softly. Not bodies. Source. The world forgets bodies. Stories endure. He stood and lifted a leather-bound book from the table. The cover read, Chapter 3, The Confession. You've been looking for proof, Hale said. Here it is. Every word, every truth, written by me. But like every good confession, it must be read in person. Where? Reed barked. The feed shifted. Hale angled the camera toward a window. Through the blinds, Reed recognized a blinking neon sign. Haven Motel. It was 5 miles from the bindery. Alvarez whispered, We can have units there in 5. Reed shook his head. No. He's expecting me. He wants me alone. Then we both go, she said. He doesn't get the ending he wants. Reed closed the laptop. The room went black. The only sound left was the metronome slowing down, then stopping altogether. The Haven Motel sat at the edge of Route 9, a long-forgotten strip of roadside neon and mildew. Room 12's door was slightly ajar, a soft yellow light spilling into the rain. Reed pushed inside, gun drawn. The smell of paper and gasoline hit him first. Piles of journals covered the bed, the desk, the floor, dozens of them. Each one embossed with the same title, The Journal Project. On the wall, a projection flickered to life. Hale's face again, Live this time. You made it, he said. You're always 2 steps behind, but you never stop reading. Reed scanned the room. Where's Mira? She's closer than you think. A faint tapping sound came from the closet. Reed lunged, yanking the door open, empty. The sound wasn't from inside, but beneath. The floor vent. He knelt, pried the grate loose, and there, in the narrow crawl space, was Mira, gagged but alive. He pulled her out, cutting her restraints. You're okay. You're okay. The monitor crackled behind him. She was never the point, Hale said. The real story isn't about her. It's about you. The journals on the bed began to smolder. One by one, they caught fire, blue flames licking the edges of the pages. Hale's voice grew quieter, almost serene. Evelyn called me a monster. But you'll make me a myth. And myths last longer than justice. Reed raised his gun, though Hale was only pixels. Come out and face me, you coward. The projection shifted, Hale, stepping aside to reveal the bindery basement again. But now there was something new, a camera feed of the trunk, the one Reed had opened earlier. Inside it, a single journal lay untouched. Read it, Hale whispered. Finish it. Reed turned to Alvarez. Get her out, he said, nodding toward Mira. And call bomb squad. He's playing with timing. He drove back through sheets of rain, heart pounding. The bindery loomed ahead like a black tooth in the forest. Inside, the trunk waited, the last journal resting under the same hanging light. He opened it. The first page. This is Detective Marcus Reed's confession. The handwriting was his own. Line by line, it described every move he'd made, the bindery, the motel, the rescue, all written hours before they'd happened. The final paragraph ended mid-sentence. He realizes too late that a confession doesn't require guilt. Only an author. The sound behind him, footsteps. Hale stood there, soaked and smiling faintly. Every story needs a narrator, he said. You just didn't realize you'd become mine. Reed aimed his weapon. It ends tonight. Yes, Hale said softly. But not for me. The power snapped off. Darkness swallowed the room. One gunshot. Then silence. When the backup teams arrived, they found no trace of Hale, only the open journal on the floor. The last line, newly written in fresh ink, read, Detective Reed turned the page. And beneath it, a single message written in red pencil. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe before the next confession finds you.